I figure I meditate on it, so I'm sitting down, I'm trying to meditate, and sure enough, as soon as I close my eyes, I hear, a group of tourists coming off the stairs on the other side with a tour guide. I'm like listening, trying to meditate, and and I'm listening to this tour guide, and the tour guide is saying how, all the rocks were cut in the quarry over the mountain range we see in the distance, and that they were carried from there, cut with copper tools, and then carried from there on with vine ropes on logs across the mountains, across the jungle, down the mountains into Chichen Itza, and then assembled into this amazing monument we were standing on. I'm listening to this and I'm going, really? And then he mentioned that actually the monument was actually carved and cut perfectly so that on the solstice every year, when the sun rises, it casts a shadow of a snake going up the stairways, and the snake head is carved on the bottom, and it really works. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. These people, like thousands of years ago, were going around with huge stones across jungle, across mountain range, right? And like putting them in this perfect building that's amazingly well aligned to astronomical events. And it's not like he can build the pyramid and then like get Joe up there and get, okay Joe, the sun's rising now. Okay, pick it up now. Okay, a little bit to the left. You can't do that. You gotta calculate that stuff in advance. And those are not simple calculations. Those are very complex. Just happens that most of these buildings we find around the world are pyramidal. Most of these enigmatic buildings are pyramidal, and most of them are aligned with incredible accuracy to astronomical events. So as I was listening to this, and I'm a climber as well, and I know rock, and I know that you can't cut rock with copper. And I find out later on that archaeologists say, oh well, they had a way to temper the copper so it became hard. And I was like, okay, can anybody else do that? No. You mean that with all the millions of dollars that are invested in research and metallurgy, nobody is able to harden copper, but the ancient people thousands of years ago could do it? The other thing is that, have you ever tried to pull rocks on logs in the jungle with vine ropes? And now, you're talking about people that didn't have the pulley. So now you got to stack these rocks to make your pyramid without a pulley. That didn't sound right to me. Just because I'm a type of a logical person. And I was standing on top of this pyramid, kind of scratching my head, going, oh my God, that doesn't sound right. There's got to be some mystery we're missing here. And then it hit me. It's like, wait a minute. This is a pyramid. And there's pyramids all around the world from these ancient civilizations. Why were they all building the exact same geometry? Why didn't they make a cube? What's going on? What's with this pyramidal thing? And I thought, okay, maybe this is a long shot, but maybe they knew something about the fundamental structure of the vacuum. Maybe they knew something about the logos of reality, the fundamental structure from which everything emerges. And maybe pyramids are involved in that. So when I got back home, at the time I lived at Whistler, Canada, a big ski hill, I went to my local library. Well, you know, in a ski resort, library is not, you know, so elaborate. But I was looking for information about ancient civilization, and the first book I came across was titled Mystery of the Mexican Pyramid by Peter Tompkins. And I thought, oh, that's a good title. Definitely is a mystery there. And I opened it randomly, if there is such a thing. And when I did, this graphic, this is not my graphic, this graphic was on the page. A tetrahedron within a sphere. Well, I had spent by then a very long time coming up with the idea that a tetrahedron and a sphere must be part of the geometry of reality. And it was the base of my theory. And to find this in a book that talked about ancient knowledge was crazy. I'm like, oh my God, they beat me to it by 2,000 years. Dang, I was going to copyright this. And I was like, oh, what's that doing there? And, you know, there was a whole elaboration about the relationship of a tetrahedron to a sphere, showing that a tetrahedron has a very interesting relationship to the sphere, where it intersects the sphere at exactly 2/3 down, 1/3 up, if one point is on the south, or if one point is on the north, then 2/3 up and 1/3 down. And it intersects the sphere at exactly 19.471222064 latitude, which is exactly where I live, actually. I live on the big island of Hawaii, and that is on one of those points. And I was puzzled. How did that get in there? Did somebody listen to my thoughts? But I realized that this graphic was the result of a paper that had been published by an American engineer that had been hired to survey the huge city, ancient city of Teotihuacan near Mexico City. This is where there's the moon pyramid and the sun pyramid and the way of the dead and all this stuff. His name was Hugh Holliston Jr. and the paper was published by the American Health Society after 20 years of him putting surveying all of the buildings there. Well, when Hugh Holliston Jr. started to survey the buildings at that ancient city, he found something very bizarre. He found that all the buildings there seems to, like the large buildings, the temples and such, seems to be in the exact appropriate place to describe all the orbits of our solar system, with the sun pyramid, the moon pyramid, and everything. He found all the orbits, including Pluto and Neptune. Now, Pluto and Neptune, Neptune, I think it was late 1800s. Pluto was discovered by us early 1900s, 1920-something, by the observatory in Arizona there, in Flagstaff, Arizona. So, how come these people, thousands of years ago, had these orbitals? Not only did they know these planets were there, but it had the appropriate placement to generate their orbits.